Hi, I'm DuEwa Frazier, and you're listening to episode 19 of Nerdacity podcast. And today, my guest is Nicole A.Telfer. Nicole is a graduate student in Applied Developmental Psychology at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, UMBC. Nicole previously earned her Bachelor of Science degree in Human Development and Family Studies with a minor in psychology at Penn State University, as well as a Master's of Arts in Applied Developmental Psychology at UMBC. Her research focuses on the retention of Black women in STEM programs, intersectionality, and on examining ways to improve the educational experiences of Black youth to inform preventative interventions in inner city areas. Nicole believes that understanding the role of socio-cultural factors like neighborhood disadvantage, systemic racism, and poverty can help improve the academic success of Black adolescents and close the educational achievement gap that exists in the United States. Outside of academia and research, Nicole advocates for Black youth by volunteering at local public schools and mentoring through organizations that serve at-risk youth. Lastly, Nicole is the author of 2 books, Freed, and her most recent, A Black Woman's Guide to Earning a Ph.D., which we will talk about today. Thanks for listening. Hi, Nicole. How are you?
Hi, DuEwa. Thank you again for having me. I'm so excited to talk with you.
Perfect pronunciation of my name.
No problem. I make sure that I always pronounce people's names properly, especially Black folks' names, because that's important.
Yes, true indeed. Well, thanks so much for joining me here on the podcast today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's a little bit of snow outside still, but there is sun, so I'm happy for the sun.
Exactly. Well, I want to congratulate you on your book, A Black Woman's Guide to Earning a PhD. This is phenomenal, and I certainly wish I had this book when I was in my doctoral program because, oh boy, did I have a lot of questions and different things I was going through.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So please, Nicole, you are soon to be Dr. Nicole A. Telfer. Please tell me about your journey, whatever you want to share about your candidacy, as well as your inspiration behind writing this wonderful guide for Black women earning a PhD.
Absolutely. So I started my program in fall of 2018, and I actually went straight into a doctoral program after my undergrad, after I received my undergrad degree. So it was a difficult transition. Many of the people in my cohort are relatively older than me. Um, I would say that the first year was definitely challenging, not only with schoolwork, but just learning how to balance all these tasks that no one really tells you about. You just learn about it once you get into your doctoral program, that you're just many different priorities and tasks, and that's just a skill that we all have to acquire. And I think that we all might acquire by the end of our first year of our doctoral program. But that's one of the reasons why it was really challenging for me. Another challenge was navigating, racial discrimination experiences. And I did go to a PWI for my undergraduate degree. I went to Penn State University, and it was way larger than the university that I'm attending now. I'm at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. But there were enough Black students there to stand in solidarity with me when needed. However, in doctoral programs, we often, unfortunately, see less and less of us, of Black people who look like us and who can share similar experiences with us. And so in my
Sure.
program, I am the only Black doctoral student, which meant that I was the only Black student in many of my classes. So
Sure.
those came with challenges, as I didn't have other Black graduate students to stand in solidarity with me when needed. I often felt othered in my classroom settings. In my book, actually, I talk about a particular situation where my professor, who was a white woman, asked me in front of my very small class of seven, because that's how graduate programs are. You have very small classes.
And Nicole, just
Yeah.
real quick, I didn't realize your voice was more muffled, but I can hear you a lot better now. I don't know what you just did, but you just
Okay.
moved or something.
Okay. So
Can you?
is this good?
Oh, that's 100% better. Thank you so much. If you can just go over the last few lines of what you said. You said you felt in some instances othered, and then can you go on from
Sure.
there? Okay.
And in some instances, I felt othered in my classroom settings. And in my book, I do talk about a particular situation with a professor of mine who is actually also a white woman. And she, in my small class of seven, in which I was also the only Black graduate student in that classroom, she asked me, "How did my hair grow so long over the weekend?" And so I didn't know how to respond to her. You know, when we think of these racial discrimination experiences, where it's often hard to figure out how to respond in the moment, because
How did you respond?
I I was silent for maybe a good 5 seconds, and after that, I think I said something like, "It's a protective hairstyle for Black women," and then she thought it was appropriate to ask follow-up questions and say, "Protective of," yeah. She
Oh,
asked me,
no.
"Protective of what?"
No.
And at that,
No. Nicole, did you engage her because she was being an a-hole? I hope you know she was being an
I
a-hole.
know.
And I'm telling you
Mhm.
this because I once had a professor that said to me, "Well, DuEwa, you don't seem like the kind who speaks
Wow.
Ebonics," in a class where I was the only woman of color and the only Black person. And I really think that I don't think I directly
Hmm.
addressed her, but I later on let her know once I achieved all
Hmm.
my degrees. I sent her a note to let her know, this Black girl that you tried to, embarrass, I'm now, more degreed than you
Wow.
are.
Yeah, so I knew that, she was being an a-hole, and that she knew what she was doing. And so my fear with responding in a very hostile manner was that it would fall on me, because not only was she my professor, but she was also the program director. She held many hats in the department. So I started thinking of power dynamics, and like
Yeah.
how that would affect me as a first year
That's
graduate student,
terrible.
right? So I
Yes. What if you had said, Nicole, oh, I hadn't noticed? What if you had said, I hadn't
hmm
noticed? What if you,
yeah,
play dumb so that you don't have to give them your energy and your attention, because she may be a higher up, but wow, shame on her. How ignorant and nasty and low
right.
down of her.
Yeah, I definitely didn't know what, and I guess it's because I didn't ever expect, because I've this is not the first time that I've worn extensions around white people. I've never been asked the question. Maybe I would have gotten a few stares here and there, but I never expected for a white person to be so blunt and assertive and entitled.
Text me next Text me next time and I will quickly tell you
I will
what to say.
definitely text you. Thank you.
Be like,
I need
DuEwa, she just said
you.
this. What do I say back? Girl, I'll be like your, what is it? You know how the comedians have a writer for their jokes?
Uh-huh.
Yes, girl. I will give you those
Yes,
one
I'll just
liners.
we'll have a code, and I'll say DuEwa, code white people doing it again, or something like that.
Oh, Lord,
Yes.
girl. Code that
Yes.
BS. You can just say that and I will know exactly what you mean. I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. Okay. So, all right. And so now, in having those kind of, microaggressions, so then what did that teach you about being a Black woman, gaining a PhD?
Well, knew from the beginning that it would come with challenges. And, you know, for some reason, I had this expectation that once I get into graduate school, I guess the discrimination and the microaggressions would be minimal, because I assume that, you know, people who are in graduate professional settings would, I don't know, I guess at least be different. But my therapist said something to me, and she said, wherever I go, there I am. And the way I took that is, you know, I'm going to be a Black woman in every single space that I enter. And it's up to me to figure out how I'm going to navigate these spaces, because unfortunately, racism in academia is the norm. It exists, and it doesn't seem like it's going away anytime soon. Um, and so
Mm-hmm.
this is something that I've had to learn, that I need to seek out Black women mentors who are in academia, who can help me navigate or share their experiences as to how they navigate the academy, without letting it take over their life and, you know, stress them out. So I have definitely been seeking out Black women mentors who are in the academy, who have been in the academy for years, and just getting resources from them, because I realized that even upon receiving my doctorate degree, it doesn't end and it doesn't stop, unfortunately. So, yeah, definitely looking for seeking mentorship and support from women who look like me, who have already been through this journey and who are well experienced in their respective fields.
So true. And I do also want to say, Nicole,
Mhm,
sometimes, you know, the whole wherever you are, there you go. But to be quite honest, I am, in my view, and you can tell me what you think,
mhm,
especially being an author and someone who's currently going through your candidacy now,
mhm,
it's not really your job to figure out. When you say, I don't believe, it's not my job to figure out how I should respond. I don't feel it is their problem.
mhm,
You stepped into the space, but they don't own it.
mhm,
They have a certain privilege and a perceived entitlement. But as you mentioned, your professor, I mean, quite frankly, she could be gone tomorrow.
mhm.
You
Oh
know,
yeah.
their professors and directors and heads of these programs in higher ed, they're being fired left and right. One misstep, one, you know, show of your slip hanging, and you could be gone tomorrow, especially in this climate where social justice is important, diversity and inclusion is important, and even colleges are trying to get it
Mhm.
right in this climate. And so um, I feel like, you know, it's their
Yeah.
problem. You be your beautiful, excellent, genius self and let them deal with
Right.
it. Let them squirm for
Right.
once.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And so when I think of that, wherever I go, there I am. It is not like me wanting to fix or change any systems. Like I don't, in terms of
Or to change yourself. I think
exactly.
that's more of what I'm saying.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. And that's not something that I intend on doing, because I still wear my wigs, I still wear my extensions, I still um wear my nails whenever I want to go and get my nails done. And if I want to put on fake nails, I still do that as well. I've never had any intentions of changing myself for the sake
Good
of
for you.
other for white people's comfort at all. um
Good for you. And sometimes, unfortunately, it's pure jealousy. You step in a place, you have energy, you're bright, you're beautiful. You know, there's a lot of jealousy, professional jealousy
yep.
around. You're younger. You know, there's people who look at a younger person on the come up and they immediately feel
Yeah,
threatened, you know?
I agree.
So now, Nicole, and now, so let's get back to
Hmm.
your book, A Black Woman's Guide to Earning a PhD. What made you say, you know what? I'm a doctoral candidate. I'm seeing things going on. I'm going to put my thoughts to paper and I'm going to publish this guide for other women.
Yeah, so I have been journaling about my experiences and my journey since I started my program. And I was just one day I was just looking, and it was actually at the very start of the pandemic. I was looking through like what I've been journaling, and I thought to myself, wow, I feel like other Black women and women of color should have these resources too, because I've spoken and connected with other women of color and Black women on social media, and we've been going through the same challenges and experiences. And I always just wish that there was, resources. There are resources, but, more and more resources, because you can never get enough resources to help women of color and Black women who are entering PhD programs to just navigate and get accustomed to life in academia. So it was actually during the pandemic, when I was like the start of the pandemic, when I classes be we started doing classes online, so I was home, and I was like, I'm gonna turn this into a book. I feel like there are women who need to read the book, and who would definitely um, find it helpful and find it useful. And it has been the case since I published the book. I've received a lot of messages from women as far as Africa and Nigeria, telling, yes,
Wow.
saying, thank you for this book. I really appreciate it. I was also on the plane once with, I was sitting next to a white man, and he actually, he he adopted she's from, I forgot the part of Africa that she's from. Ethiopia.
Suits. Oh,
Yes.
Ethiopia?
She
Okay.
he a white it was a white family who adopted an Ethiopian daughter. And sometimes I am not fond of white people adopting Black children, but from talking with him, I could tell that he really wanted her to have Black mentors, Black Ethiopian
Mm.
mentors at that, and just helping her navigate as a Black woman, African woman in, they are currently in Texas. And she was also interested in attaining her PhD one day. She's still in high school. She's getting ready for college. And so I told him
Mm-hmm.
about my book, and he bought it right there on the spot, and he said, thank you. I know it's going to help her, but I also know that it's going to help me um, as well, in terms of, a white man who has a Black daughter who is interested in getting her PhD someday. So, even though this book is definitely geared to Black women, and I'm not apologizing for that, I've made that clear 100 times. I've had some reviews where people say, why is it just for Black women? That is something that I'm absolutely not apologizing for, because it's often an
Sure.
issue when there are just resources for Black women, because we're expected to share our resources all the time. We're expected to extend ourselves all the time. So that's just one thing I'm not
Mm-hmm.
apologizing for. But there are
Sure.
a lot of resources and tips in the book that not only helps Black women, but women of color, people who are in graduate programs in general, and also white people who want to understand or learn how to support the Black experience, the Black woman experience. So
Sure.
yes, that's really. Mhm.
And I want to mention, thank you for that, Nicole, that you have some wonderful tips and very beautifully written chapters in your book. And you talk about ways in which Black women should be able to receive more support in their programs, leaders of their programs. You talk about increasing Black women's financial support. You also talk about creating supportive spaces for Black women where they don't feel isolated. You also talk about supporting Black women's research and other
Yep.
scholarly work, and as well as creating a running list of grants, scholarships, and fellowships, which Black women can apply to, and so much more. This book is quite valuable, and it has so many great resources and tips in it. I even love how you've worked in the whole psychological, emotional, spiritual aspect of, deep breathing, meditation, clearing
Yeah.
clutter, and learning how to release anxiety, which I think for Black women, I'm not saying other people don't have anxiety, but I know as a woman of color, a Black woman myself, who's kind of gone through some of that, it can heighten when you are really trying to achieve and do a
Hmm.
lot, and when you're in a space where you're not understood and when you're not being supported.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so, in terms of Black women reading your book and networking, what has been some of the reaction and response that you've received to your book?
In terms, can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Yes, in terms of Black women doctorates, those who are currently striving or those who've earned already, other Black women in academia, what has been, I guess, some of the dialogue or response that you've received regarding your
Oh
new
yes.
book?
These responses that I've been receiving, it's even more heartwarming when it's from people that I don't know. So I remembered as soon as you asked this question, I immediately remembered a young lady who sent me an email. And it was the longest email, but it was the sweetest and most needed email for me. And she just mentioned how grateful she was for coming across my book, and she was telling me specific instances of like thanking me for sharing my vulnerability in the book when I talked about depression and how that has gotten over me throughout my graduate program and how I'm still battling with depression as well. And she also thanked me for reminding her that she doesn't need to earn rest, that rest is our birthright. And so that's something that I also wanted to emphasize in my book, that yes, academia is all about work, 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 but it is important that we rest. If we need, whenever we feel it in our bodies that we need to take time to rest, that we should do that right away, because we don't have to earn rest. We don't have to say, well, I've done enough tasks for the day, I think I can rest now. No, even if you haven't done enough
Mm,
tasks for the day, it's okay to rest, because it's not earned, it's given to us, it's literally something that we need to do. um, so that's something that
wow.
she was truly grateful for, as for reminders. um, People also really appreciated the resources, the number of fellowships that I mentioned. I also received a direct message from someone who said, I've never heard of the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation Fellowship. So thank you for including that in your
Hmm.
book. And I plan on applying for that um, in the spring
Wow.
semester. So I'm just really grateful that people really find my book useful, and that there's information that is very useful. Even in the beginning, when I talk about the whole application process of applying to PhD programs, there are people who aren't even in programs yet, but are thinking of applying, and they find those steps helpful as well. So I'm just grateful that, there are bits and pieces that people find very useful. Even my white professors, they find the parts where I talk about Black Lives Matter and just Black lives in the academy. They are grateful that they have this resource to refer to when they are trying to figure out ways of how they can support their Black graduate students in their respective programs. So yeah.
That's wonderful. And I also love in your book how you walk the reader through, what it's like to apply to
Mhm.
graduate school and like creating a really realistic timeline for yourself to get your GRE testing done, to do your research, to figure out those application fees
Yeah.
and everything.
All of those are quite necessary, because applying for programs, PhD programs, especially when you're applying for maybe about five, they can be very expensive. And I don't think people make us aware of that when we're applying. So, yeah, I did think that was something important to definitely include in my book.
Wow. This book just has so much. And Nicole, do you think that you will, because what is your, I guess, the point in which you're through to your completion of
Mhm.
candidacy for your doctorate? How long do you have to
So
go?
my goal graduation date is fall of 2022. So December, January, no, yeah, a little before January. So maybe the end of December of 2022 um, is my expected graduation date. Um, as for admission into candidacy, that's something that I am working on as we speak at the moment. So I do hope
Sure.
to be admitted pass my comprehensive examination by May and focus solely on my dissertation. So yeah, that's my process, my progress right now.
Wow. Well, that is just absolutely phenomenal. And then do you feel that you are able to balance being a doctoral student and also an author and promoting your book and things
Yeah,
like that?
for some reason, I've always been the person who likes to be busy, but don't get me wrong, I also love to rest. People know, whoever knows me knows not to interfere or tamper with my sleep. But I I haven't had any issues with juggling being a full-time doctoral student and doing something that I love, which is writing. So it hasn't been a burden for me, and it's actually something that I absolutely enjoy.
Wow, I love to hear that. I'm similar in that way that, I mean, even though I was finishing my doctorate, I still, whenever I got a break, I would do a little blogging or I would, post some fun social media posts. I mean, those really gave me
Right.
brain breaks as well, to be able to do a little bit of my creativity, even if I couldn't do it,
Mm-hmm.
like full out.
Yeah, those are needed. Those times where we just do things that we love amid our programs, it's needed. It helps us rejuvenate, and it's a reminder for me as well that um, I'm almost at the finish line of my doctoral program, and yeah, I can't
Yay!
wait to join you in the
Yes, and I definitely want to cheer you on. And when you post your graphic and your photos, I will
Thank
repost it
you.
as well. So now you're in my network, and I'm so proud of you, Nicole. I just want to
Thank you
put
so
that on
much,
the
and I'm so
record.
happy to have you in my network now as well.
Thank you. And so, Nicole, how would you like for people to continue to support you in terms of your book, A Black Woman's Guide to Earning a Ph.D., and anything else you're currently
Yeah,
involved
so
with?
um for those who do have social media, I am on Instagram. My Instagram name is Nicole Telfer, and then just one underscore. So my first and last name and then one underscore. And my book can be found on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and other platforms. I believe it like I see it on things like Goodreads, and I saw it on eBay and Walmart. I don't know how it got there, but but it's
Exactly.
there.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
good, right?
Yeah.
And your website
Yes.
again is Nicole Telfer,
Yes. That's my
NicoleA.Telfer.com.
website's name. And I also blog as well. So if anyone ever wanted to read any of my blogs, they can also find that on my website.
That's wonderful. And you do have a
Thank
very nice
you.
website. And so I will certainly share this out. And thank you so much again for joining me today and taking time out of your busy schedule, Nicole. I really appreciate it. And I really wish you the very best in a successful completion of your doctoral program and continued success in promoting your book, A Black Woman's Guide to Earning a
Yes, thank you,
PhD.
DuEwa, again for having me on your podcast, and thank you for this platform. I've really enjoyed the people before me who you've interviewed and spoke with, and this podcast and this platform is very necessary. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to share our stories and just connect with others.
Oh, you're so welcome. Okay, well, take care. And of course, I will be in touch. Have a
Thank you.
wonderful
You
day,
too.
Nicole.
Bye.
Okay. And you were just listening to episode 19 of Nerdacity Podcast featuring my guest, Nicole Telfer. Nicole is the author of the new book, A Black Woman's Guide to Earning a Ph.D. Visit Nicole's website at NicoleA.Telfer.com. Tweet me and follow the podcast on Twitter at NerdacityPod1. Also follow the podcast if you're on Instagram at Nerdacity Podcast. If you're enjoying these episodes, please consider making a small donation by visiting anchor.fm/DuEwa-Fraser/support or by sending a quick PayPal to paypal.me/DuEwaWorld. Also visit my author artist website at DuEwaWorld.com. Thank you so much for listening. Take care.